Rivers State. Federal government approves immediate evacuation of Nigerians from Ukraine, Poland, others. Clergyman advises Christians to engage in charity and almsgiving during Lenten season. Former INEC chairman Jega says Nigeria is in the process of collapsing, decries bad governance. And on the foreign scene, China calls on its nationals to remain calm in the face of rising indiscrimination. Good evening and welcome to News Round on Impact Africa Television, IATV. I am Toluwalike Ali. The Senate has passed 2 bills to establish a federal university in the Federal Capital Territory and Rivers State. The 2 bills are the FCT University of Science and Technology, Abuja Bill, and the Federal University of Environmental Technology, Rivers State Bill. The bills were passed after the consideration of 2 separate reports presented by the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Tertiary Education Trust Fund. Presenting the report at plenary today, the Vice Chairman of the committee, Sandy Onu, said the bills will provide the legal framework needed by the institution to close the knowledge gap in science and technology. It will also allow for academic and professional programs leading to the award of first degrees, postgraduate degrees, and diplomas with special emphasis on environmental technology and research. Both bills to establish the federal universities were passed by the chamber after consideration by the Committee of the Whole. Meanwhile, 2 bills seeking to establish the Federal College of Education in Kwara State and Alvan Ikoku Federal University of Education have also passed a second reading in the Senate. A bill seeking to amend the 2022 Appropriation Act has scaled second reading in the Senate. The bill seeks to amend the 2022 budget by making provision for capital and recurrent expenditures without increasing budget deficit. The bill also seeks to include additional provision for the payment of petrol subsidy, which was not provided for in the Act. President Buhari addressing to the National Assembly asking the legislature to replicate capital projects in the 2022 Appropriation Act. Similarly, the President has again written to the Senate to amend the recently signed Electoral Act 2022. The President urged the lawmakers to consider the outright deletion of the section which calls for the resignation of political appointees before party primaries.
Permit me to lead the debate on this very important bill, which seeks to amend the 2022 Appropriation Act in the sum of 161,499,052 naira for capital expenditure and 43,870,532,044 naira and 44 naira for recurrent expenditures without increasing the budget deficit. Highlight of the request for amendments made by the executive arm of government include the following. Number 1, funding to cushion the impact of the recent suspension of the petroleum motor spirit subsidy. Number 2, addressing the adverse implications and some changes made in the 2022 Appropriation Act that could have impact for the successful implementation of the budget.
The 2022 Appropriation Act to provide for a total sum of 106,161,499,052 naira only for capital expenditures and 43,870,592,044 naira only for recurrent expenditures and for other matters connected there with 2022 second reading taken.
Another development, the Senate President Ahmed Lawan has urged President Buhari to transmit the Petroleum Industry Act to the National Assembly for amendment. Lawa made the call today while reading the President's request for the amendment of the 2022 Appropriation Act. The Senate President said the Petroleum Industry Act will enable the National Assembly extend the subsidy regime. It will be noted that the present subsidy regime is expected to elapse in June in accordance with the provisions of the Petroleum Industry Act. He also directed relevant oil and gas committees of the National Assembly to engage the executive on a bill to amend the Petroleum Industry Act to align with the President's request. The Deputy Chief Whip of the House of Representatives, Nkeruka Onyeji-Ocha, has described the rejection of the bills to promote women political emancipation as a conspiracy from the male lawmakers. Onyeji-Ocha made the assertion today while briefing newsmen a day after both chambers of the National Assembly voted against the gender-related bills. She said the women are hurt with the move, stressing that the action of her colleagues amounts to a gang-up and bias, which will continue to affect generation of women in future. Onyeji-Ocha, who is also the sponsor of the bill that advocates for special reserved seats of 111 for women in the parliament, said they have lost the opportunity to gain some grounds in the country.
Today, Nigerian women are angry. Nigerian women are very angry. We are here gathered in front of the National Assembly expressing our anger towards what the legislators, towards what the senators have done to Nigerian women. We are asking for women representation. We are asking for our basic fundamental human rights. Women are part of the citizens of this country. Our constitution needs to acknowledge that. Women, gender equality is not a women's thing, it's a development thing. We want to participate in Nigeria becoming better. We want to contribute our quota to the development of our country. We are not happy the way the country is. Women have potentials. We are asking to be brought to the table, and the legislators are saying no. Nigerian women are not happy. We can no longer sit and fold our hands and watch things fall apart. We have so many countries that are doing better because women and men are brought on the table. Women have a different perspective to development, just like how men do. Men and women complement each other. We're not asking to compete with men. We are just saying, bring us to the table so that we can together move this country forward. And what are we asking for? Just 35%. They still have 65%. What are the men afraid of?
This morning to register our displeasure to the Senate failure to pass the proposed bill 35, if I'm right, that seeks to create special seats for women in the national and the state assemblies.
How do you explain that a Nigerian man can afford indigenship to his foreign wife, but a Nigerian woman can't do the same to her foreign husband? Meanwhile, we have a number of our men who have traveled to the Western countries and their wives afford them citizenship. And then looking away from just politics and governance, let's trickle it down, because the quality of every nation has a direct impact on the personal life and living experience of the individual. If we stifle our women today, what message are we sending to the young girls? What are we telling them? That you don't have free moral agency? That you can't, as a Nigerian, aspire to exercise your franchise to the highest level? Is that the message we want our young girls to take home? And then we keep complaining about the moral decadence.
Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC) and the Nigerian Union of Local Government Employees (NOGE) has urged the National Assembly to vote in favor of autonomy for local government and judiciary in the ongoing constitutional amendments. Speaking in Abuja, the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Ayuba Waba, said the autonomy of the local government is paramount to strengthening democracy for the effective delivery of good governance and national development. In his remarks, the majority leader of the House of Representatives, Alhassan Ogawa, assured the unions that the House remains committed to the welfare of the people and will deliver on its expectations.
Senators and honorable members, one, to support the ongoing process of constitutional amendment, and to reiterate the fact that on 3 core issues, we want the National Assembly to vote unanimously in support of those issues. One is the autonomy for the local government system. The local government system, if allowed to work effectively, it will address the mirage of challenge that is affecting the Nigerian society. Today, local government system is in the pocket of few. In fact, the allocation to local government has become pocket money for the boys. We want that to stop. We want a system where in administration, in finances, even in the election, there should be a process where there should be full autonomy for the local government. The second issue is the judiciary. Judiciary cannot dispense justice free, fairly, without the autonomy. He who pays the piper will continue to deter the tune. And therefore, we want the judiciary to also be independent so that they can be able to dispense justice free, fair, and to the best of their ability. If they are allowed to be running cap in hand, to be begging money to maintain the courts, you are sure that we are not going to have justice that is free and fair. And lastly, is for the parliament. There is the principle of separation of power, where the 3 arms of government are supposed to have separate power, separate authority, and separate autonomy. And therefore, we are aware that the state houses of assembly have been under also some siege, and it has been difficult to the converted. The 4 issues raised by the President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, as mentioned here, have been succinctly captured in our report, which is right now before the House of Representatives for final consideration. I want to assure you that the House of Nigerian people, the House of Representatives, under his leadership, Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, will not renege in our commitment to continue to deliver on the expectations of Nigerian people. We will continue to deliver on the promises we have made to our people during the electioneering campaign. And I want to say also, without fear of contradiction, this is one only time in the history of the National Assembly. It's one only time in the history of the Nigerian Labour Congress when the Labour and the House of Representatives are working on the same page.
The government has approved $8.5 million to facilitate the evacuation of 5,000 Nigerians from Ukraine, Poland, Romania, Hungary, and Slovakia. The Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Zubairu Dada, made this known today while speaking with newsmen shortly after the Federal Executive Council meeting in Abuja. Dada said the approval followed a joint memo presented by the Ministries of Foreign Affairs and Humanitarian Affairs Disaster Management at the Council meeting. He noted that the evacuees include 940 from Romania, 150 from Slovakia, and 350 from Poland who have registered to leave. The Catholic Archbishop of Abuja, Most Reverend Ignatius Kaigama, has advised Christians to engage in charity and almsgiving during the Lenten season. Kaigama gave the advice today as Christians mark the Ash Wednesday, which signified the beginning of a 40-day Lent. The clergyman noted that the life of Christians will be complete only when they show love, support, and share with the poor in the society. He called on political leaders to deliver on their mandate by which they were elected into office, adding that some leaders lack the disposition to make their offices function properly. Kaigama maintained that the leaders must be upright and follow the teachings of the holy books at all times. Meanwhile, Christians across the nation have been asked to reflect and live a life of worship, devotion, and penitence in commemoration of Ash Wednesday, which marks the beginning of Lent. Ayodele Fakeye completes the report.
Each year, Ash Wednesday marks the beginning of Lent. The day, often referred to as the Day of Ashes, is a solemn reminder of human mortality and the need for reconciliation with God. It is often symbolized by placing ashes in the shape of a cross on the forehead of the entire congregation. While speaking on the significance of Ash Wednesday, Father Monsieur Fadeyi said the Day of Ashes is focusing people's hearts on repentance and prayer through personal and communal confession, stressing that it is a time of reflection and penitence leading up to Easter Sunday.
ṣùgbọ́n nígbà tí a bá tún ṣe àwọn nǹkan ìsìn wa mìíràn nítorí ló fi jẹ́ pé ní gbogbo ìgbà ká máa ronú sí ìgbésí ayé wa ká máa mọ̀ ní pàtàkì ìgbà tá a bá dẹ́ṣẹ̀ kò sí ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ tó kéré jù Ọlọ́run ti sọ fún wa ní wípé kò sí bí ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ wa náà ti lè pọ̀ tó tá a bá ti fi lè jẹ́wọ́ rẹ̀ pẹ̀lú inú mímọ́.
Also speaking, Sacrist Victor Ajiboye explained that apart from the practice of praying, fasting and giving to the needy, the most important thing is people's attitude and the heart behind the practices.
Season of Lent, there are 3 things that is mandatory for all of us to do. The first one is that we should intensify our prayer life. That is the first aspect. But our prayer life will not be of showing off. Then the second aspect of it is that we should remember the poor people. Then we should be charitable to them, but not trumpeting everything that I'm doing this thing for someone, but we should be in privately so that the God will reward us. Then the third aspect is that we should abstain, that we should fast. In Catholic Church, they already mandated that from 18 years to 659. All the money that you normally use for, maybe you take beer, you buy recharge card, you can keep it and use it for the charity.
He added that there is a need for Christians to abstain from some meals and live in holiness.
On this day, that is on Wednesday, Ash Wednesday, we should abstain from eating meat. Any fresh meat, we should abstain from it. Then on Friday also, we should abstain. Throughout this month, throughout this season, we should abstain from eating meat on Wednesday and Friday. And we advise all of us to live a holy life, because nobody knows the time or the hour that God will call us.
On their part, some church members, Akinwusi Olabanjo and Komolafe Charles, likewise said the day is a time to reflect and to live a lifestyle of worship and devotion.
This time, we have to come closer to God. This time we will fast, but it's not by force. In the Catholic Church, from 18 to 59, this time we give alms, you go to people's home, you make yourself available at any time to worship God.
Normally the attitude of Christians for this period is at least to sober, to let the Christian knows that the Christ has died for us. And we must let everybody in the community knows that at least we are still emulate the Christian life.
Ash Wednesday derives its name from the placing of ashes on the foreheads of people to the dictum, remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Ayodele Fakeye, ITV News.
Former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Atahiru Jega, says Nigeria is in the process of collapsing. This is as he noted that the political leaders who cannot deliver on their mandate now control the process of governance and blindly running the country aground. Speaking today in Abuja, Jega noted that considering the current situation of the country, the 2023 general elections may be the make or break epochal moment. Jega said the issue of national emancipation for credible national development beneficial to the Nigerian people must be raised high on the front banner of national discourses, while calling that all hands must be on deck to prevent the country from the alleged imminent collapse. The former INEC boss called on the federal government to be proactive in putting an end to the challenges facing the country. The Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, has disclosed that the 2023 general elections may not be credible. This is as the association described security challenges occasioned by the activities of terrorists, bandits and kidnappers as the biggest threats to the forthcoming elections. Speaking during an interactive session between Christian leaders and the European Union delegation led by Maria Arena, the president of the association, Samson Ayokunle, called on the Independent National Electoral Commission, the security agencies and the political parties to do everything possible to ensure a fair election. Ayokunle explained that the security situation in the country might not allow the general election to be credible, free and fair if the voters are not allowed to go out to exercise their rights. He noted that federal and state governments are struggling to nip the situation in the bud as their present effort is far from being enough. Ayokunle, however, tasked INEC to borrow a leaf from its counterpart in Gambia, where their recently conducted elections were far better than Nigeria's elections. Governor Godwin Obaseki of Edo State has reconstituted a committee to boost the state's response to the outbreak of Lassa fever epidemic. Speaking with newsmen today, the State Commissioner for Health, Obehi Akoria, said the state has recorded 136 cases of Lassa fever since the outbreak of the epidemic, with a 13% fatality rate. In a bid to further expand residents' access to lending their voices to government's policies and programs, the Osun State government has launched a web platform. Speaking with newsmen, the special advisor to the state government on civic engagement, Olatubosun Oyintiloye, said the platform will bridge the gap between the government and the people and as well strengthen the communication channels for effective interactions. He said the platform will also create an avenue for partnership with multinational corporations and non-governmental organizations who are interested in improving living conditions of rural dwellers. Speaking on the mandate of the agency, Oyintiloye stated that the center will interface with the people across social strata to promote socio-democratic ideals through inclusive and participatory governance.
It's about people. We want to be seen as running an inclusive and participatory government. We want people. We want this government to be seen that all of us, whether in and out of the state, we are stakeholder in government program, in policy formation. We just don't want to create law for people. We want people to be part of the process of forming a policy, because it's a law is not meant for animal, it's for people. So you need people to be carried along in your programs so that it can be acceptable, they can be seen to be part of that program. And once they are carried along, there will be no shortcoming or resistance to such a policy or programs of the government.
I know that in furthering to this website, the whole world, the Osun is now open to the whole world. I'm sure that Osun indigenous and citizens, home and in diaspora, will be happy to witness this day that we are witnessing. This is historical. It is something to be remembered for a very long time.
Representatives has passed for second reading a bill seeking to include pharmacists, nurses and other medical professionals in the board of the teaching hospitals. This is as the bill seeks to restructure the composition of the governing board, review the nomenclature of the heads of the hospitals, redefine the qualifications of the heads of the hospitals, and provide a definite tenure of office of the heads of the hospitals. The bill, sponsored by a member of the House, Bamidele Salam, will also review the terminology of the heads of the hospitals. Leading the debate on the bill, Salam noted that in the United Kingdom, to become a hospital administrator, one does not have to be a medical practitioner. Students of tertiary institutions in Ondo State, under the auspices of the National Association of University Students, have blocked highways in the state to protest the ongoing strike by the Academic Staff Union of Universities. The students called on federal government and members of the union to reach a common ground in a bid to end the incessant strike bedeviling the education sector.
This time around, we are not ready to chicken out. As long as they want us to be at home, we prefer to sit down. We prefer to sit down on the road instead of sitting at home, because an idle land is the devil workshop. So instead of us to be idle at home, we prefer to stay on the street and to show the government that we are tired.
Take proactive steps towards solving this, because I don't think, with the way things are going, with what I have seen, I don't think Nigerian students are ready to leave the streets if we don't go back to class.
Take as long as the federal government aids to our request that they should end ASUU strike, because this ASUU strike of 18 has been an annual festival and which has been depriving the students from having access to quality and good education. Our calendar in various institutions has changed. A student that want to spend 4 years in university ending up spending 6 to 7 years.
Sports news is coming up next with Kenny Bamidele.
In sport, former Norwich City manager Daniel Fark has left Russian Premier League side Krasnodar without taking charge of a match. The German joined the club in January and had signed a deal until the summer of 2024. He was set to manage his first games last weekend against Lokomotiv Moscow, but following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, operations at Krasnodar Airport were suspended and the fixture was postponed. His decision to leave Krasnodar follows the resignation of fellow German Markus Kisdol as the manager for Lokomotiv Moscow today. Meanwhile, Roman Abramovich's future as Chelsea owner is in doubt after a Swiss billionaire claimed he has been offered the chance to buy the club. Hans-Berg Weiss told reporters that Abramovich wants to get rid of Chelsea quickly after the threat of sanctions was raised in the parliament. Chelsea manager Thomas Tuchel voices frustration over Roman Abramovich questions.
For me, as a coach and in charge of the first team, that decision does not change too much in the daily business, because I'm in a daily exchange with Petr Cech and I'm in a very regular exchange with Marina about how to improve the first team.
Chelsea have not chosen to respond to the claims of the 86-year-old Weiss. The West London club have always previously denied reports that they are up for sale. In boxing, Tyson Fury says he will retire after next month's defense of his WBC title against fellow British heavyweight Dillian Whyte in London, stating he has nothing to prove.
I'm going to try and come in at my heaviest weight of all time. For the biggest fight in the biggest crowd, you're going to see the biggest Tyson Fury. I'm going to come in like a man mountain. What was my biggest weight? Can anyone tell me? I think it was like 19 stone 11, was it? 19 stone 10. I'm going to come in heavier than 19 stone 10. I'm going to be the heaviest world champion ever. I've been across the Atlantic Ocean, in the exotic venues of MGM Grand, T-Mobile, Staples Center, and I just feel like the song Thin Lizzy, the boys are back in town. 4 years away, and I get to come back and showcase on the world's biggest stage at Wembley Stadium.
And lastly, in sport, in Formula 1, Max Verstappen is poised to sign a lucrative new deal to keep him at the Red Bull for the next few years, according to reports in Netherlands. The world champion's existing deal with Red Bull expires in 2023, and the newspaper says the new one would extend it by an additional 4 or 5 years. Report in Formula 1 says Russian drivers have been banned from competing in the UK by the National Motorsport Authority. Motorsport UK will refuse to recognize licenses of competitors from the Russian Federation until further notice. It means Nikita Mazepin cannot race in July's British Grand Prix even if he continues to be part of the Haas team. And that is all we have for you from sport. I am Kenny Bamidele. Good evening.
Thank you, Kenny. On the foreign scene, the Chinese embassy to the United States has urged its citizens in America to take measures and ensure their safety amid the alleged rising discrimination against Chinese nationals in the country. In a statement today, the embassy urged them to remain calm should they encounter discrimination and violence and handle the situation the right way to avoid quarrels and physical conflicts. The embassy decried that the Chinese Asians have faced assaults, particularly international students. Moving on to the Ukraine-Russian war, Russia's President Vladimir Putin signed a decree which introduces temporary economic measures to ensure the country's financial stability. In a statement today, Putin said the measures comes in response to the anti-Russian sanctions by the United States, other countries and international organizations. According to the new measure, Russia will now ban the outflow of foreign currencies in an amount exceeding the equivalent of $10,000. Also, restrictions regarding transactions of securities, real estate and loans will be imposed on foreigners associated with countries that have taken anti-Russian